The Galactic Empire spanned thousands of systems, its silver banner stretching across the void like an endless tide. Worlds bent the knee without a shot fired. In the imperial halls of Citadel Prime, Earth was a forgotten footnote, an isolated blue speck deemed too primitive to warrant conquest or concern. They were wrong. Commander Atreides Vallon, a mid-level officer in the Empire Survey Corps, stood rigidly before the holographic map hovering above the command dais. His eyes, sharp and analytical, narrowed on the anomaly blinking faintly at the edge of the Sol system. Background noise, his superior had grunted. Nothing to divert resources for. But Atreides wasn't so sure. There were whispers, data disruptions, missing scouts, unexplained gravitational shifts near the third planet. Whispers the Empire refused to hear. Far below the blackness of space, hidden beneath the crag scars of Earth's moon, humanity had been preparing for centuries. Away from the gaze of Imperial probes and passers-by, the Terran Alliance built Arkadia, the Supercarrier, Earth's last and greatest secret. It was a vessel born not of fear, but of necessity. Earth's leaders had known for generations. Discovery was inevitable. The galaxy would come, as it always did, with demands and domination. Arkadia was their answer. Admiral Celine Ward watched the dry dock's final seals disengage from her station aboard the Supercarrier's bridge. She was a woman forged by impossible expectations. Her dark uniform crisp, her hair in a tight braid that did little to soften her hawkish features. Around her, officers moved with a focused urgency, systems humming to life in sequence. "All reactors nominal," reported Lieutenant Kavanaugh, his voice calm but electric with excitement. "Cloak integrity stable. We're invisible." Celine allowed herself the briefest flicker of a smile. "Then it's time." The Supercarrier slid from the shadow of the moon, a leviathan of cold, angular armor, its thrusters whispering as they carried it into the dark. On Earth, people went about their lives unaware that the future of their species had just taken flight. Atreides watched as the scout team transmissions crackled and died one by one. He knew protocol demanded he report only verified threats, but instinct gnawed at him. Something was happening at Sol, something big. Still, the Empire's arrogance ran deep. Earth was cataloged as Tier 7, unremarkable, isolated, backwards. What harm could primitives do? Far from Imperial reach, Arcadia's quantum core shuddered into full activation. Celine stood at the center of her command circle, surrounded by 360 degrees of real-time tactical displays. Every officer knew the stakes. Earth had no fleets, no colonies, no allies beyond its pale blue sky. Arkadia was it, the shield and the sword. "Incoming signatures," called out Tactical Officer Bryn. Unmanned Imperial probes. 3 of them. Celine's jaw tightened. No warning shots. Annihilate them. Seconds later, streams of magnetically accelerated projectiles ripped through the void, silent but devastating. The probes disintegrated, leaving only microscopic debris to whisper their final failure to the Empire. Across the cosmos, Atreides received the first incomplete data packets, the evidence he needed. His superiors dismissed it again. Natural phenomena, they insisted. Old satellites decaying. Atreides filed an official report anyway, marking it priority anomaly, Class 2. He knew they'd ignore him, but he had seen the trajectory. He had glimpsed the shape hiding in the darkness, and he knew he was not mistaken. On board Arkadia, Celine reviewed the intercepted Imperial chatter. The Empire hadn't fully noticed. Not yet. Every hour bought Earth precious time. And time, she knew, was more valuable than any weapon. Later, in the quiet hours before Arcadia's next maneuver, Celine sat alone in her private quarters, the weight of command pressing down harder than the moon's own forgotten gravity. She thought of her parents, both scientists who had given their lives working on Arcadia's hidden foundations. She thought of Earth, fragile and blissfully unaware of a knife hanging over its throat. Celine opened a small locket tucked inside her uniform. Inside, a tiny photo of her younger brother, grinning wide, face smudged with grease from helping her repair old ships in their youth. He was one of billions she had sworn to protect. Her hand closed tightly around the locket. She would not fail them. A chime sounded at her door. "Come." Bryn entered, saluting. "Ma'am, long-range sensors have picked up something larger." Celine rose instantly, her instincts snapping to full alert. "What kind of larger?" Bryn hesitated. "Possibly an Imperial frigate-class vessel. Its course, it's coming straight for Sol." The silence between them was palpable. "So it begins," Celine said quietly, as Arkadia pivoted under silent thrusters. Cloaked and deadly, Celine issued her first war orders. The final game had begun. Earth would no longer be a silent footnote in galactic history. They would become its loudest shock. Word count, 1 for 82 words. Of course. Here's section. The Imperial frigate Indomitable cut through the dark like a spear of wrath, its hull glinting with ancient battle scars. Aboard its bridge, Captain Vorn Telvannes leaned over the tactical display, his pale fingers drumming a restless rhythm against the edge. Vorn was a career officer, forged in the endless annexations of outer colonies. In his experience, civilizations without interstellar fleets fell like rotted trees at the first blow. He expected little different from the system marked Sol, but already something gnawed at the edges of expectation. "Unusual sensor interference, Captain," reported the communications officer, a young ensign with uncertainty leaking into his voice. "Telemetry is fragmentary." Vorn frowned. "Sources?" "Unknown, sir. No ion storms or gravitational anomalies detected." He studied the stars outside the viewports, their cold indifference offering no guidance. He'd been given a simple task: verify Sol's compliance, extract tribute or data if available, and report back. It was supposed to be perfunctory. Beneath the heavy cloak of Arkadia, Admiral Celine Ward watched the Imperial frigate slip into range. Her mind ticked through possibilities like a machine. Engage now or hold. A direct assault risked drawing attention before Earth's defenses were fully prepared. But allowing the Empire to study them would be suicide. She tapped the command console lightly. "Bring the silent claws online." Dozens of hangar bays groaned open, releasing swarms of dark, razor-edge interceptors, each slave to Arcadia's quantum combat AI. They moved without formation, scattering like leaves in a storm, each a node in a deadly silent network. Aboard Indomitable, alarm shrieked. "Unidentified contacts, Captain." "Hundreds, no, thousands of small craft." Vorn barked orders. "Shields up. Deploy countermeasures." Plasma turrets rotated and spat bursts of fire into the void, catching a few of the interceptors, but not nearly enough. Like a tide, the claws flooded forward. Targeting arrays jammed. Communications deadened to static. The frigate's sleek confidence faltered. Celine watched through Arcadia's tactical feed, expression cold. "Isolate their engines," she ordered. "Cripple, not destroy." Within minutes, the Imperial frigate's propulsion systems exploded into a halo of blue fire. The Indomitable spun helplessly, drifting dead in space. For the first time in decades, an Imperial ship was at the mercy of an enemy they hadn't even known existed. On the bridge, Vorn staggered against the command rail, fury and disbelief warring across his face. "Signal the Empire. Send a distress beacon." "We're being jammed, sir," the ensign cried. "No outgoing signals." A deep shudder ran through the ship's frame as magnetic harpoons latched onto its hull. Arcadia's boarding parties, encased in sleek exo-armor, began cutting into the frigate's bulkheads with precision. Celine issued her final command: extract prisoners, leave the rest. At gunpoint, Captain Vorn and surviving crew were marched through shattered corridors, their pride ground to dust beneath the boots of an enemy they had not even seen clearly. Their armor was stripped, their weapons thrown into heaps. They were no longer conquerors. They were proof. Hours later, aboard Arcadia's secure holding cells, Celine stared through a reinforced glass partition at Vorn Telvannes. He met her gaze with the furious glare of a man still struggling to fit the reality around him. "You don't understand what you've done," Vorn spat. "The Empire will come. They will bring a fleet so vast your skies will be black for 1,000 years." Celine said nothing. She simply turned and walked away, her mind already racing past this victory. The Galactic Council convened within the vaulted halls of Citadel Prime. their expressions ranging from amused skepticism to mild concern. Atres Valon stood near the back of the chamber, hands clasped tightly behind him. His initial warnings were now impossible to ignore. The frigate's last incomplete transmissions had reached them, erratic, fragmented, but enough. An unknown hostile force. System Sol. Earth. Atres was called forward. You have been vindicated, Commander, intoned High Senator Cartheman. Congratulations. The words tasted like poison. Atres hadn't sought vindication. He had sought preparation. What is our course of action? He asked, though he already feared the answer. Observation, replied Carth, to scattered nods. Send a properly equipped expeditionary fleet. If this Earth has become a threat, it will be neutralized. Atres bowed stiffly, concealing his rising dread. The Empire was a hammer and Earth a nail, but he sensed something far more complex beneath the surface. The Empire would come in strength, but would not find a trembling planet awaiting conquest. It would find Arkadia, on board the Supercarrier. Selene prepared for the next phase. Her officers moved with crisp precision, rerouting systems, recalibrating weapons, upgrading shield harmonics. The prisoners had already provided valuable information. Imperial fleet structures, common tactical doctrines, standard ship configurations. Selene understood the scale of the war Earth was about to invite. Admiral, Bryn said, stepping quietly to her side. Incoming transmission. Encrypted. Selene accepted the call, and the image that appeared before her made her breath catch. It was not human. The creature resembled a cluster of bioorganic crystals, shifting in subtle rhythms. Its voice a soft resonance that bypassed translation systems entirely. We have seen the flames you stoke, it said. We have waited long for this moment. Selene's mind raced. She knew of the deep myths, of exiled races who had escaped imperial extermination, hiding in the broken ruins between stars. Earth's secret had not only been their own. You are not alone, the creature continued. When the Empire comes, so too shall we. The transmission ended, leaving only the silent hum of the bridge. Selene exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of history shifting under her feet. They were no longer simply the last line of Earth's defense. They were the tip of a spear long buried, and now rising. The void stirred. Far across the Gulf of Stars, the Empire's expeditionary fleet assembled. Titans of war, battlecruisers, and dreadnoughts, bristling with weapons enough to crack moons. They moved in perfect lockstep, a thundercloud growing at the edge of human perception. Atres Valon watched from the observation deck as the massive ships peeled away from the docks. He had done all he could. Now it was out of his hands. And deep within him, a question lingered, cold and unsettling. What if Earth wasn't the anomaly? What if it was the beginning? As Arkadia turned its prow toward the dark horizon, engines thrumming with lethal purpose, Selene Ward smiled, a small, fierce smile. The Empire was coming, and Earth was ready. The void between Earth and the outer rim trembled with the mass of the Imperial fleet. Battle cruisers wore frigates, carrier vessels, all armored in radiant alloys, spread across the black like a mechanical storm. Their formation was a wall, an unstoppable force that had broken 1,000 civilizations before. At the fleet's core, the dreadnought Ossurer loomed, a mobile fortress with enough firepower to sear the surface of an entire world. Admiral Creon Volaris stood at the prow of the command bridge, arms folded behind him. His reputation was legendary. No rebellion had survived his hammering will. He had not come to negotiate. He had come to teach. "Bring us to Sol," he ordered, his voice calm, resonant, inevitable. Aboard Arkadia, the air thrummed with a deep, expectant energy. Every officer knew the stakes. No illusions remained. They were not here to negotiate, plead, or delay. They were here to defy. Selene Ward moved through the war rooms like a force of nature, a quiet intensity radiating from her every step. Data swirled around her. Projected trajectories, weapon calibration reports, energy redistribution charts. She absorbed it all with a mind sharpened to a singular point. "Status," she asked without slowing. "All systems green," Bryn replied, matching her pace. "Cloak at full integrity. Surface defenses on Earth are standing by under full electronic silence. Celine paused at the central holodable, watching the Imperial fleet's measured advance. It felt like standing before a tsunami, waiting for the wave to break. She touched the control, shifting the view to show Earth, small, beautiful, oblivious to the monsters bearing down on it. "We hit first," she said, "and we hit where it hurts." Behind her, the room moved into action. The plan was brutal in its simplicity. Arkadia would remain hidden until the last moment, using gravitational lensing and signal suppression to mask its launch. Meanwhile, Earth's automated orbital arrays, built in secret over decades, would launch coordinated strikes to fracture the Imperial formation. But Arkadia itself would aim for the heart, the ossuary. The Empire expected submission, a terrified plea for mercy. Instead, they would find a knife driving straight into their command spine. Across the command deck, a new alert shimmered to life. Incoming signal. Open, unencrypted. Imperial. Celine nodded once, and Bryn patched it through. A towering figure, clad in black Imperial Admiralty robes, appeared on the main viewer. "Volaris. This is Admiral Creon Volaris of the Galactic Empire," he intoned, every syllable heavy with practiced authority. "You are ordered to surrender all armed forces, cease all technological activity beyond your planetary surface, and submit to Imperial governance. Failure to comply will result in immediate annihilation." Silence answered him. Celine considered responding, if only to stall for another few minutes of preparation. But something primal in her rejected the idea. Earth would speak not with words, but with fire. She nodded once to the weapons chief. Arcadia's main cannons, hidden until now beneath layered plating, ignited like the fury of a newborn star. Lances of condensed energy, each hotter than the sun's core, streaked across the void. The first shot struck the Imperial escort destroyer Requiem amidships. The vessel, designed for planetary sieges, had no defense against an attack of such precision and power. It shattered, broken into molten fragments in an instant. Shock rippled through the Imperial formation. On the ossuary, alarm screamed to life. Volaris clenched his fists, the smooth tide of his strategy fractured by the sudden, brutal ambush. "Full battle readiness," he bellowed. "Find them." Hundreds of Imperial sensor drones launched, flooding the space around Sol with detection fields. Yet Arkadia remained invisible, sliding through blind spots with the ease of a ghost. The second wave struck harder. Earth's hidden orbital platforms unleashed synchronized railgun barges, each projectile a small comet of devastation. Imperial ships reeled, some careening into one another, others crippled and adrift. Still, the weight of Imperial numbers bore down. For every ship lost, a dozen more moved into position. They adapted with terrifying speed, forming defensive screens, recalibrating sensors to track the patterns of attack. Celine saw it unfolding. She knew the window for decisive action was closing fast. "Target the ossuary's forward command tower," she ordered. "All forward batteries." The deck shuddered with the force of Arcadia's broadside. Massive slugs, sheathed in plasma, tore through intervening ships like cloth. Explosions blossomed across the dark, debris fields forming graveyards around the Imperial advance. Volaris' flagship trembled as the command tower took a glancing hit, fracturing shield layers and crippling secondary systems. Yet the dreadnought endured, bleeding but unbroken. On the ossuary's bridge, Volaris steadied himself against the violence hammering his ship. His fury crystallized into something colder, deadlier. "Deploy the juggernauts," he hissed. From the Imperial hangars, vast ships of ancient, forbidden design emerged. Juggernauts, autonomous war machines, kilometers long, armed with siege-class weapons and layered in armor, so dense it could withstand sustained bombardment. Celine watched them unfold across the tactical screens and felt the air in the bridge tighten. "New contacts," Bryn said grimly. "Multiple Juggernaut-class vessels. ETA to Earth orbit, 15 minutes. Celine nodded, her mind racing. They would never outrun them. They had to stand and fight. She tapped into Arcadia's internal comms. Her voice, calm and resolute, carried through every corridor, every gun deck, every fighter bay. "This is Admiral Ward. Today, we stand as the shield of Earth and the sword of its future. We face an enemy who believes themselves invincible. We are here to prove them wrong. Hold your ground. Fight for every breath. Fight for home. Across Arkadia, a low, thunderous cheer rose, vibrating to the very bones of the ship. The first juggernaut fired. A spear of energy lands toward Arkadia, gouging space itself in its wake. Celine's helmsman veered hard, the carrier rolling under the assault. The beam grazed the hull, burning deep scars across the plating. But Arkadia held. Celine moved to the command dais. Her face was calm, her eyes burning with resolve. Bring the Hades system online. Technicians scrambled, activating Arcadia's most devastating weapon. A matter disruption cannon, theorized but never tested at full power. It would burn through the molecular bonds of anything it touched. Energy built around the supercarrier's prow, an eerie, low hum filling the air. The Hades system was a gamble, a weapon so powerful it could just as easily tear Arkadia apart if misfired. Celine trusted her engineers. She trusted her ship, and she trusted her people. Target the nearest juggernaut, she commanded. The Hades cannon discharged. A wave of distorted space, rippling like a heat haze across the void, struck the juggernaut amidships. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the juggernaut imploded, folding inward like paper crushed by an invisible hand, vanishing into a singularity that blinked out a second later. Silence fell over the battlefield. Celine turned back to her officers, her voice steady. Prepare to fire again. Far away on Earth's surface, eyes lifted toward the sky, where distant flashes lit the stars in unnatural bursts. They did end. Absolutely. Here's Section 4. Carefully crafted with focused narrative, precise pacing, strong character arcs, and a closing that satisfies while leaving room for continuation. The battlefield had transformed into a graveyard of giants. Imperial wreckage spun slowly through the void, twisted steel and molten plating trailing smoke and plasma like wounded beasts. Yet for every shattered cruiser, the Empire sent 3 more. The tide refused to recede. Aboard Arkadia, Admiral Celine Ward stood over the central holodeble, hands braced against its edge. Her face was a mask of calm determination, but the fatigue crept at the corners of her eyes. The Hades system had worked, once, but its core now ran hot beyond regulation, its circuits cracked by the strain. They had bloodied the enemy. Yes, but not broken them. Status of the main gun? She asked. Offline, Bryn replied quietly. Cooling systems failing. We'll be lucky if it doesn't breach containment. Celine nodded once. No panic, only the next decision. Then we buy time. Call in all interceptor wings. Prepare for close-range combat. Outside, the stars flicker with the light of fighters swarming like hornets. Dogfights erupted in tight spirals, weapons blazing against the black. Earth's AI-driven interceptors held their own, maneuvering with an unpredictability that baffled Imperial systems. But the Empire was relentless. On board the dreadnought Ossuary, Admiral Creon Valeris stood tall amidst a bridge of controlled chaos. His tactical officer spoke rapidly, voice edged with disbelief. Losses exceed projected thresholds. Their command carrier, it's unlike anything we've encountered. Valeris stared into the firestorm, then turned away. He had seen enough to understand. This was not a backwater skirmish. This was war. Bring in the Titan-class siege array, he commanded. A quiet fell over the bridge. The siege array was a last resort weapon, banned by the Galactic Council for its effect on planetary biospheres. Firing it near a life-supporting world was tantamount to declaring extermination. Valeris didn't hesitate. If we can't crush their fleet, we erase their foundation. The array was mounted to the rear of the ossuary, hidden until now beneath magnetic shielding. It unfolded with slow menace, a massive crystalline barrel that fed off subspace rifts to create world-rending discharge. It pointed toward Earth. Back on Arkadia, the moment the system came online, every sensor on the carrier screamed. Admiral, Bryn said, voice strained. They're charging something enormous. Based on energy readings, it's a planetary-scale weapon. Celine's mind surged forward, faster than fear could take root. How long? 6 minutes. Celine stared at the holographic projection of the weapon forming across space. A monstrous thing, pulsing with unstable graviton bursts, drawing more energy than even the Hades cannon had required. She knew what had to be done. "Set course," she said quietly. "Ram vector. Target the siege array." Gasps rippled across the bridge. Bryn turned sharply. "That's suicide. Arkadia wasn't built for collision warfare. It was built to protect Earth," Selene interrupted. "And it has—" A moment passed. Then Bryn nodded. "Setting course." The engines roared to full burn. Arkadia, scarred and staggering, turned to face its doom not as prey, but as predator. It accelerated with grim grace, cutting through debris and enemy fire. Imperial cruisers scrambled to intercept, but the carrier's defenses blazed with renewed fury, tearing down obstacles in its path. Within the hangars, the final squads of Earth's exo-soldiers boarded escape shuttles and defense pods. Selene had ordered all non-essential personnel to evacuate, though she herself remained on the bridge, resolute. The silence before the impact stretched long. Then a single voice cut through, a transmission, encrypted, unknown source. Selene froze. "Open it." The hollow projector flared to life, and the crystalline being returned, the same bioorganic intelligence that had spoken to her once before. "You stand on the edge," it said, voice like vibrating glass. "We have come to stand with you." Behind it, dozens of alien ships decloaked, organic shapes, flowing like water given form. Their weapons lit the darkness in cascading bursts, carving through the Imperial formation with elegant precision. Bryn's eyes widened. "Allies?" Selene's voice was steady. "No, witnesses." The newcomers didn't seek to lead. They flanked Earth's forces, shielding the evacuation pods, breaking up formations, keeping the Empire at bay, but letting humanity drive its own blade. Arkadia tore toward the ossuary, its engines screaming, hull groaning under the mounting pressure. Inside the Empire's dreadnought, alarms howled. Volaris stared in horror as the Supercarrier loomed like an incoming moon. "Evacuate!" he screamed. "Get us out of range." But it was too late. Arcadia's reinforced prow struck the siege array mid-charge. The resulting explosion was not fire, but light, a silent white wave that ruptured the fabric of local space. The ossuary shuddered, burst open along its spinal core, and died in a silent scream of energy and broken matter. On Earth, night became day. Even through atmospheric shielding, the light of Arcadia's final act washed over the surface like a distant supernova. Selene Ward was gone, but her legacy, Earth's Defiance, had seared itself into the annals of history. In the days that followed, the remaining Imperial forces withdrew. The loss of the dreadnought, the collapse of command, and the presence of unknown alien allies had fractured their morale. For the first time in centuries, the Empire retreated without conquest. In the Galactic Council's Great Hall, silence reigned as the news arrived. A single world, long ignored, had not only survived, but struck back. Atreus Valon stood before the assembly, voice quiet. "I told you Earth was different. I didn't know how much." He turned from the chamber, no triumph in his step, only purpose. Something had awakened in Soul, not just resistance, but a spark that might set fire to stars. Back on Earth, the skies were quiet. Bryn stood at a memorial site, the first of many, a black obelisk, etched with Selene's name and the symbol of Arkadia, rose from a cliffside overlooking the ocean. Children played below, unaware of the war that had nearly consumed them. Bryn placed a hand on the stone, lips forming a silent promise. She would rebuild. The Empire would return one day, perhaps changed, perhaps worse. But Earth would not be taken by surprise again. Far beyond the reach of known charts, a dozen alien species gathered in secret. Their leader, the crystalline being who had spoken to Selene, observed the gathering. "The humans have ignited the old flame," it said. "The Empire is not yet dead, but its shadow has been pierced. Let the stars prepare." And somewhere in deep space, among the wreckage of both titans and monsters, a silent capsule drifted. Inside, a stasis pod blinked green. Selene Ward slept, and she would awaken when Earth needed her again. Word count, 1 for 95 words. Let me know if you like the full 4 sections compiled into a single file, or want help crafting a title chapter by chapter next.